Good morning. Happy Monday. The time for convening has arrived, and the Senate will now come to order. At this time, I would ask that all unauthorized persons exit our beautiful chamber. There's a run for the door. It's with a heavy heart that we miss the senator from the 53rd, but I'm very excited to recognize a senator from the 56th. He seems well prepared for his task today.
Mr. President, on this day in history, several important things happened. Ivan Allen Jr. was born, graduated from Georgia Tech, and later served as the mayor of Atlanta for 8 years. The first Southern radio station began in Atlanta, Georgia in 1922. And today, we don't know if there's a coincidence with the Senator for the 53rd being out, it is National Napping Day. Also of note, concern may be that the Senator of the 13th is not back. It is National Peanut Lovers Day. And last but not least, it is National Sleep Awareness Week, which will play into the Senator from the first grave concerns about daylight savings time. And with that, the journal's been found to be read and correct.
The chair is caught off guard at the preparedness and genuineness and fact-finding that the senator from the 56th brought forward. It's not customary early. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 292 by Senator Perrin of the 42nd, a bill to be entitled an act to provide a homestead exemption from the City of Decatur Independent School District ad valorem taxes for educational purposes for 5 years in the amount of $200,000.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 293 by Senators Perrin of the 42nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to create and establish in DeKalb County, Georgia, districts from which the members of the County Board of Education of DeKalb County shall be elected.
State and local government.
This completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 153, due pass by substitute. House Bill 336, due pass by substitute. House Bill 693, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 161, due pass. House Resolution 130, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 218, due pass by substitute. House Bill 168, due pass. House Bill 453, due pass. House Bill 364, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 476, due pass. House Bill 410, due pass. House Bill 293, due pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 287, due pass. Senate Bill 290, due pass. House Bill 658, due pass. House Bill 533, due pass. House Bill 623, due pass. House Bill 634, due pass. Senate Bill 21, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
House Bill 63 by Representative Blackmon of the 146th and others, alternative ad valorem tax, motor vehicles, revised definition of fair market value. House Bill 112 by Representative Kelly of the 16th and others, torts, provide certain immunities from liability claims regarding COVID-19, extend applicability for 1 year. House Bill 119 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others, Professions and businesses. Chiropractors may own professional corporations with physicians. Provide. House Bill 149 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others. Income tax. Certain elections to be made subchapter S. Corporations and partnerships for the filing of tax returns and imposition of taxes. Allow. House Bill 169 by Representatives Corbett of the 174th and others. Motor vehicles. Commercial driver's license. Provide requirements for issuance. House Bill 174 by Representatives Wydower of the 119th and others. Motor vehicles, federal regulations regarding safe operation of motor carriers and commercial motor vehicles, update reference date. House Bill 207 by Representatives Corbett of the 174th and others. Motor vehicles, electronic submission of certain documentation required of manufacturers, distributors, dealers, secondary metals recyclers, used motor vehicle parts dealers, and scrap metal processors by the Department of Revenue. Provide. House Bill 210 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others. Motor vehicles, recording of odometer readings upon certificates of titles, exempt certain vehicles. House Bill 234 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others. Self-funded health care plan opt-in to the Surprise Billing Consumer Protection Act, enact. House Bill 246 by Representative Watson of the 172nd and others. Motor vehicles, issuance of replacement licenses and permits, increase fee. House Bill 271 by Representative Reeves of the 34th and others. Community Health Department of assess one or more provider matching payments on ambulance services, authorized. House Bill 292 by Representative Williams of the 148th and others. Ad valorem taxes, property, remove certain training requirements for members of county boards of equalization following their initial training for the first term. House Bill 305 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others. Professions and businesses, massage therapy, revised definition. House Bill 322 by Representative Wydower of the 119th and others. Juvenile Code, revised definition of sexual exploitation. House Bill 355 by Representative Wydower of the 119th and others. Georgia Carbon Sequestration Registry, inclusion of building products in construction provisions. House Bill 362 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th and others. Environmental Protection Division, effective dates for standards, rules, and regulations, revised. House Bill 374 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others. Sales and use tax, local authorities providing public water or sewer service, exempt. House Bill 395 by Representative Belton of the 112th and others. The Professional Counselors Licensure Compact Act, enact. House Bill 497 by Representatives Estration of the 104th and others. A Code Revision Commission, revise, modernize, and correct errors or omissions. House Bill 620 by Representatives Leverett of the 33rd and others. Garden and Ward, payment of certain settlements involving claims of minors, clarify and revise procedures and requirements. This completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, it's now time for our morning roll call. It is now time for morning roll call. Does any senator... Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Good morning, Mr. President, and good morning to the rest of y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the following senators from the 35th, 38th, 43rd, 44th, and 26th for business outside the Capitol, sir.
Without objection, the senators from the 35th, 38th, 43rd, 44th, and 26th are excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 25th.
Without objection, the senator from the 25th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 50th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 53rd.
Isn't that your roommate? Did you forget to wake him up?
For business outside the Capitol.
For business outside the Capitol. The chair, senator from the 53rd, is excused. Does any other senator wish to make a motion to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 24th.
Mr. President, I will excuse the senator from the 54th, business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 54th is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Chair recognizes the senator from for what purpose the senator from the 33rd rise?
I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 37th.
The machine's already open. It's too late to make that motion. Have all senators voted your machine? We got one coming. Have all senators voted their attendance? All right, we got a thumbs up from the hallway. Ms. Secretary, please close the machine. It's now time for our morning devotional, and I'd like to ask that all senators take your seats and cease all audible conversations, and doorkeepers, please secure the chamber. Chair would like to recognize the pro tem at this time to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce our pastor of the day, the Apostle Rodney Huey. In addition to being an effective communicator of the Word of God, Pastor Huey is a founder of the Community Church of Atlanta. He attended Hall County High School system, East Hall High School. He attended Piedmont College. He's a chaplain for the Gainesville Police Department. He's a founder and CEO of Gainesville United, the Hope Center, and the Roderick Huey Ministries. He is also president of the International Black Ministers. I don't know how you have time for anything else. He is a man full of spirit. He is also a talk show host on our local radio station, WDUN in Atlanta. He works with Shondell Summers and Martha Zoller on a regular basis and does talk shows with them. His beautiful wife, Amika, is here with us, and they have children and grandchildren that they enjoy spending time with. But what I want to share with you about Apostle Rodney Huey is he is a man that can bring people together. He is a man that speaks to our entire community, not just as facets of our community, but our entire community in Gainesville and Hall County. I know that you'll give Pastor Huey your attention, and you will gain comfort from his word. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to say thank you, first of all, to God for my health and strength, of course. To my beautiful wife, thank you for being with me. To my friend Butch, thank you for having me here. And I can truly say he's a friend. To all of you, thank you so much for allowing me to stand before you and just share a thought. I'm not going to preach today, so you're okay. He asked me to keep it under 3 hours, so I'm going to do my best. After taking a step back from the protest of summer, from the election that seemed to push us farther apart, I immediately had a moment where I thought there must be a reset. This is the perfect time for a reset. And then I was reminded of Romans 12:2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing or the resetting of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable, perfect will of God. So being, I began to ponder the reset, how important it is for each of us to understand, especially me, the process of being reset. We all know about the factory reset, the act of returning to the factory setting, a mulligan of sort. Then there's the simple reset or restore, the act of returning to a date and time before there was a problem or an issue. The question is, which one would you possibly benefit from? Sometimes we need to just be reset, or sometimes we need to just be restored in our personal and professional lives to a point or a time where things made sense and had a clear meaning. Just maybe we need a reset. Through this pandemic, I'm finding out, and I've learned, that it's very important to keep things in order in my life, making sure that I understand what's most important. Real quickly, I want to, it's no longer enough, sorry about that, it's no longer enough to simply restart day after day. The same things, doing the same things, saying the same things, expecting the same things. We know the definition of that. Just maybe we need a reset. Thank you for allowing me to share with you what was on my mind. Let us pray. Can we stand? Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today, and for these, your men and women of God that has been chosen to be our representatives. God, we ask that you lead them and guide them, not only in their professional lives, but God, in their personal lives. God, we ask that you cover their families, keep them from all hurt, harm, and danger, and continue to guide them as they guide us. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Again, thank you.
That's the shortest sermon I've
Senate will come back to order. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th for a point of personal privilege. Does the senator from the 48th waive? Recognized for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I rise today to speak about a topic that I feel has not received enough attention over the past year. It's a new chapter in a very old story. I think sometimes we see it play out in videos, sometimes it's in cell phone recordings, sometimes it's footage off of building security cameras, but always it is horrifying. Asian elders being violently, sometimes fatally, physically assaulted. We see octogenarians being shoved to the ground, elderly women being slashed at with knives or assaulted with thrown acid. Asian pedestrians being verbally accosted, threatened, spit on. A middle school student being told by his classmates that people like him were the cause of the so-called China virus and Kung flu. And when he protested, noting his family wasn't even Chinese, he was repeatedly punched in the face by his own classmates. According to a report released earlier this month, violence against Asian Americans has increased by nearly 150% in the past year. But the vast majority of these incidents aren't recorded and shared on social media, and many, if not most, are never reported at all. In the past year, the organization Stop AAPI Hate, which tracks discrimination against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, has received more than 3,000 firsthand accounts of anti-Asian American harassment or attacks, compared to roughly 100 incidents annually in the previous years. And, not to perpetuate the stereotype that Asian people are good at math, but by my calculation, that's a 30-fold increase in what look to be racially motivated crimes. So larger cities with higher densities of AAPI residents have garnered most of the news coverage on this front. But Georgia should not consider itself immune from this epidemic. And to be clear, the epidemic I'm referring to is not COVID-19, but racism towards Asian Americans. In the last year, 32 incidents of hate crimes towards our AAPI community here in Atlanta have been reported. This includes one incident in which one customer at a store assaulted another Asian customer, shouting, and I quote, "Effing, nasty, dirty, conspiracy Chinese. You're why we gotta wear masks, you disease-spreading B word. F your people." It includes an incident in a pharmacy where an Asian customer was aggressively sprayed all over her body with Lysol and told, quote, "You're the infection, go home, we don't want you here." And it includes incidents covered last April in the AJC where racist plaques were posted on private property. These plaques read, quote, "Wuhan plague," and depicted Winnie the Pooh eating a bat with chopsticks below the words. Charming. The thing is, racism against AAPI Americans is not new. Otherization or exoticization of AAPI Americans is not new. Violence against AAPI Americans is not new. Recall that our country once built internment camps for Japanese Americans during World War II simply because our country could not conceive that people who looked as foreign as I do could be trusted to have allegiance to America. The key to social change is participation, especially when you feel that voices like yours aren't always heard. That's why I'm here. That's why I know the senator from the 5th is here, because Asian Americans are an important part of our communities. They are an important part of Georgia. And we are an important part of the fabric of this country. The motto of the United States is E pluribus unum. It means out of many, one. Asian Americans are part of our country's plurality. We are some of the many, and we are part of that one. And all I'm asking right now, as the first East Asian state senator in Georgia, is simply to fully consider us as part of your communities. Recognize that we need help, We need protection, and we need people in power to stand up with us against hate. Being elected to represent our communities means representing everyone in our communities, and I implore you today to raise your awareness and stand up against discrimination towards our Asian American neighbors and friends. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. The chair recognizes the senator from the 20th for a point of personal privilege.
Friends, I come to you this morning with a heavy heart. The city of Dublin, Lawrence County, and all of Middle Georgia are mourning this morning the loss of Dr. Jeroy Stuckey and his family, his wife Alicia, and their son AJ. They were killed in a tragic accident on I-16 yesterday, a 4-car crash. Dr. Jeroy was the principal, much-loved principal of Dublin High School. They were a young family with a promising future. He completed his undergraduate degree at Georgia Southern, earned his master's and specialist in education leadership from Georgia College and State University, and earned his PhD from Nova Southeastern. So we're in mourning today. It reminds me how fleeting life is, and we need to tell people that we love them, and the comfort is that knowing that they are at peace with their Maker. But I ask you to rise with me and pray for the Stuckey family and for the Dublin-Lawrence County community.
With a heavy heart, the senator has asked us to offer a moment of silence.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today as we continue our month of celebrating Women's History Month by recognizing Chaplain Monica R. Lawson. Chaplain Lawson is the first African-American woman who's in active duty to ever rise to the rank of colonel. She's an AME pastor and a Spelman alum. I celebrate Chaplain Lawson's accomplishments and acknowledge that she stands on the shoulders of many other Black clergy women who've come before her. We remember Jarena Lee, an AME lay minister who acknowledged and began her ministry in the 1700s. We also celebrate Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie, the first AME bishop who was a Black woman. And because I'm an Episcopalian, it seems like it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge also the first Black female Episcopal priest, the Honorable Polly Murray. I also stand on her shoulders, along with the Right Reverend Bishop Barbara Harris. Today, on this day, as we celebrate women in history, I lift up all women clergy, women who have broken through a stained glass ceiling over and over again. They are rabbis and imams. They are pastors and chaplains. Some of them have no formal titles, but instead, throughout all of history, they've been faith leaders in their villages and in their families, training our children and training adults in how to be faithful people who love and respect all. So today, I salute all women, clergy women, and honor the great history that I stand in and that great legacy of breaking through stained glass ceilings. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of this body, I know we all have the experience of having talked to an immigrant or refugee from another country and often hearing their warnings and their heed that we don't become like the place that they come from. Well, I'm a refugee from a faraway land, and I bring warning to you this morning. I come from a city called Chicago, and I have great fear as I watch our dearly loved capital city become more and more like Chicago every day. We are beginning to have the same entanglements with violence that Chicago is having, and I have a question this morning. Why? Why, after 32 days in this chamber, has there been nary a mention of this reality? Why have 56 senators suddenly lost their voice? Here's the scary data, have you not had a chance to hear it yet? And this comes from APD's COBRA report. From 2019 to 2020, murder in Atlanta increased 62%. Shootings increased 45%. Total arrests were down 30%. Total traffic stops were down 35%. Why? Maybe 2020 was just a tough year. It was a tough year for a lot of us. Well, so far, 2021 is even worse. Year to date, murders are up 80%. Shootings have increased over 2020 year to date, 47%. Total arrests, they're down 43%. Total traffic stops, they're down 23%. Why? Do we care? Does it matter? These are mothers, brothers, fathers, sons, and children slain in our streets, and our voice is suddenly silent. Our total crime rate has now increased to the extent that it has surpassed my home city's rate in 2020 and so far in 2021. So as a Chicago refugee, I plead with you, please do not be quiet. I know there's not an opportunity to come up here and virtue signal. There's no opportunity for political grandstanding. There's no one person that we have the opportunity to blame. We can't hide in our nooks and hide under our desks any longer. This is a moment of life and death. And let me tell you, as a person who comes from a city that will probably never come back, once you lose a city, it is very hard to get it back. This is a moment for intellectual honesty. This is a moment for community involvement. This is a moment, yes, to support law enforcement. This is a moment for leadership. Mr. President, I ask that we all work together to confront this problem of raging crime in our city. And with that, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I rise today to talk about a story that I saw in the paper this weekend. It's not new, but I am still disappointed that the Georgia vaccination rate continues to rank as one of the lowest in the nation. We are the great state of Georgia, and I find it hard to believe that we are so behind in our vaccination rate. Governor Kemp is failing in both logistical and administration and public communication. The governor and his administration are letting vaccines sit in freezers instead of deploying the maximum number of shots to save lives. There are a number of solutions we should consider from other states that have been successful, including mobile vaccination clinics, a more seamless appointment system, further expansion of mass vaccination clinics that are walk-up and drive-through, no appointment required, a better information campaign to help the public understand their eligibility, and better outreach to those who lack mobility in hard-to-reach communities. We still have seniors, those with disabilities, and others with limited mobility that have not been able to get vaccinated. And we're talking about those that have been eligible in phase 1, still having trouble getting vaccinated. And part of the problem is still scheduling. We should not require Georgians to go on a scavenger hunt to get a vaccine. In minority communities, we have a problem with information and we have a problem with access. Many minorities are still very skeptical about taking this vaccine. We have got to push a better information campaign and education campaign to those communities. I ask that our state examine the gaps in vaccine rollout and work to make responsive action today. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a question. When did right stop being right? When did wrong stop being wrong? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm wondering when the outrage is going to come over New York's Governor Cuomo. Where's the outrage? I don't hear it from the women. I don't hear it from New York. I don't hear it from the Democrats. Had that been a Republican, oh my goodness. Where's the outrage? Washington, D.C. is a mess. Portland, L.A., Minnesota, you name the cities right now, and we've got protests, and it's okay. People getting killed, private property getting destroyed. Trump's not in office. The Democrats are in control right now. And yet, we're going to allow these protests to continue. The citizens that aren't even participating in the election process, that aren't even paying attention to the political process, they're just trying to pay their bills and run their businesses. But they're subjected to the continued protests that we're going to allow. Law enforcement's continuing to be pushed back, no pun intended, to be handcuffed to do their jobs. We just heard from a senator about the vaccine and the limited availability. That's bunk. Our state continues to roll that out. Is it our governor's fault that certain populations are afraid to go get the vaccine? No. As a Republican, it's called personal responsibility. As a citizen of the state of Georgia, first it was the vaccines weren't available, now they're available, and now it's our fault because they won't take it. Ladies and gentlemen, encourage people to take the vaccine. If they want to take it, it's available. If not, stop the blame game. With that, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Help's on the way. The COVID-19 relief vote has been taken, and the package is headed for Georgia and the rest of the 50 states of the great United States. It's going to be incredibly important to the options that we have as a state to meet the needs of our economy and the health of our citizens. I'd like to read you a letter that I got from a Georgian up in Roswell. Dear Senator Orrock, as a faith leader in Georgia, I'm writing today to ask you to take advantage of the Medicaid expansion deal in the American Rescue Act. If our state opts to expand Medicaid to low-income adults, the federal government will increase funding for Georgia's Medicaid program by 5% for the next 2 years. That would bring $1.3 to $2 billion to Georgia, which could fully fund our schools, pay for more broadband access in rural and underserved communities, reduce the Medicaid waiver waiting list for people with disabilities, or strengthen our elections infrastructure. This deal is too good to pass up. With one move, Georgia could build a bridge to health coverage for 500,000 low-income adults, support struggling rural hospitals and communities, and reduce racial health disparities. Please act now to expand Medicaid in Georgia. Thank you very much. Regards, Carol Maddox, Roswell, Georgia. A very important letter that I received from one of our faith leaders. You know, right now we've got in the budget that's passing through our process more than $70 million for the waiver program. We're third in the nation for having the largest uninsured population. We have some dreadful health outcomes. Our statistics on maternal mortality for all women, and particularly for African American women, are some of the worst in the nation. It's time to act. This is a deal that Georgia cannot turn our backs on. We would net enormous amounts of money to come into our healthcare infrastructure funding, to bring coverage to the uninsured, and to build up our health delivery infrastructure. We have now all learned how important health and access to health care is, without a doubt. Let's do the right thing, Georgia. Let's take this COVID-19 relief plan and make it our own. The American Rescue Plan is on the way. Let's step up to the plate and hit a home run for Georgia. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you can probably count on one hand the times I've been up here in the last couple of years, but I'm pretty outraged today. The House sent us 30-something bills, a lot of them Christmas tree bills, multiple components on it. We sent them a few. We've passed out 6 of their bills. We have not had a single hearing on one of our bills. And let me just give you an example of one of these bills. It's got $100 million in there that we actually did 5 years ago, I think. There's been no study on it. All I know is that you had to have $100 million in assets to get this, and they gave 5 of those companies $20 million. We don't know what happened to that. It's a scam that has fleeced at least 10 states. And with no study on the last one, they're back again. And that particular bill has a fiscal note on it that says it's going to cost $185 million, and that's not true. It's going to cost $285 million. So I asked why. They said, well, the payout of that $100 million is in the 6th year, conveniently. We only look at the first 5 years to do the fiscal analysis. Jeb Bush shut this down in Florida, Scott Walker in Wisconsin, and another state, a senator said, whatever you do for a tax credit, do the opposite of what this one is. In another state, they said, if you did this to little old ladies, you'd probably go to prison, but I guess it's okay to fleece lawmakers. We have got tons and tons of stuff over there, and yet we send over to them a couple of bills that say, with these hundreds of millions we're giving out, let's spend a few $1,000s and actually study these things and see if they make sense, and yet no hearing on it. I was looking at 6 bills today in finance. I'm going to hear 1, and that may be it. We have got to have action to do this in a business-like manner and not just send over stuff that eliminates sunsets, everything that this body has been against. We, in a bipartisan matter, said unanimously, we wanted to study these. We want to look at them, see if they make sense like any other business should do. Most all the states do that. We're in that select few that don't have a study process in place, and I think some people don't want a study process in place because they might realize what's in some of these. Mr. President, I yield well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. I just wanted to remind you that this week is St. Patrick's Day. And I want to encourage everybody to think about wearing green. And we may have an annual Blarney Stone contest here. If y'all don't, for those who don't know what the Blarney Stone is a stone where you put your hand on it and see who can tell the biggest tale and make people believe it. Last year was a tie between the senator from the 53rd and the 12th. So, so may the luck of the Irish be with you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that reminder of the Blarney Stone Center from the 33rd. It might be appropriate for our media in the metro Atlanta area of telling tales. I appreciate what the Senator 9 said and the senator from the 14th. But when you continue to put front page headlines about everything that's negative and wrong and only showing one sliver of the story and not the truth of the rest of the story, we call that a lie. So Georgia has a lower vaccination rate overall, but we have one of the highest ones for senior citizens, the 77% of those who are dying. Well, of course, we want to vaccinate the people that need it the most, who are most susceptible to losing their life. The media has continued to beat up Governor Kemp, and yet he has been right every single time in this virus. Go ask the folks in New York and California how those lockdowns worked out. They've got more deaths, and they've got more infections than anybody. But we opened our economy back up. Our budget's doing great. In fact, it's breaking records right now. We gave freedom and liberty back to the very people who deserved it, and we're protecting those who are most vulnerable. So don't tell me you're credible and compelling in the news if you're just telling Blarney Stone tales. It's time to put the positive and the truth back into the media. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I've seen divisive politics up close. Been to D.C., been there, done that, and it's not pretty. And I've started to see that poison leak down into this state. And I was hoping it was going to wait at least until election year, but it's here. So as y'all get your talking points from the Democrats up in D.C., keep in mind that is meant to divide. And this state has stood better than any other state when it comes to politics and coming together and doing what's right for our citizens. And when we heard from the senator from the 9th, when we hear these talking points blaming our governor, well, just a few months ago we were blaming the Republican president. And now we're going to blame a Republican governor. It's not the Democrat president's fault. Can't blame him. So the message to the American people and to the citizens of this state is, if you're a Republican and you're in charge, it's your fault. That's the message I'm hearing. So just keep in mind, when these talking points come out of D.C., they're meant to do one thing and one thing only, and that's divide. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 5th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, my dear colleagues. I stand here today grateful to honor one of my favorite leaders, President Jimmy Carter. I want to recognize and celebrate the long life of President Carter, whose outstanding accomplishments include being a Nobel Peace Prize winner, former Governor of Georgia, former Georgia State Senator, a global human rights activist, and the longest living United States President at 96 years old. When I came to this country, Jimmy Carter was 39th president. So I have a personal connection with him. He has also visited Bangladesh as the first United States president. Thanks to all my colleagues for joining me to honor one and only Georgia's president by signing on to the Senate Resolution 241. We honor President Carter for his leadership at home and worldwide as a reflective, compassionate, and humble leaders. We recognize the outstanding and long-standing accomplishment of President Carter and thank him for his dedication to the state of Georgia, the United States, and the world, and congratulate him on being the longest living United States president. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the way.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to recognize a state patrol from our area, Bullitt County, Georgia. Actually comes out of Statesboro Post, who was actually wounded over the weekend in a high-speed chase on I-16. His name was Mr. Trooper Aaron Ramirez. They were actually chasing a guy that had kidnapped a young lady, and very luckily the state patrol's car was riddled with bullets, but he just suffered a graze to his forehead. Senator Robbins, and so he's doing very well. So I'd just like to thank State Patrol Aaron Ramirez, and if y'all would please rise, let's have a moment of silence and pray for him.
Senators ask for us to rise for a moment of silence.
Amen.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we need to look at something very seriously. We need to add a third lane to 16. We don't need to wait. We're going to be one of the busiest ports in the world. The railroad cannot handle all the freight. Truckers are going to be up and down the road. You remember we had to do $1 billion deal because we let our highway system get down, and we had to bring in the money to fix it. What we need to do is start planning and put the money in to build a third lane. There's been a lot of conversation, and most of it has been about 14 from Augusta, Columbus to Texas. But we need to do what we need to do, and I would hope that the chairman of appropriations would look at it and we start putting money in to build that third lane. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. You have a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair sees none. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I unanimously move that we remove House Resolution 142, that it be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Operations and be committed to the Committee on State Institutions and Property.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Resolution 142 by Representatives Green of the 151st and others, a resolution authorizing the lease of certain state-owned property located in Baldwin County, authorizing the conveyance and granting of easements on certain state-owned real property located in Columbia County, authorizing the convenience of certain state-owned property in Hall County, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator, have both chairmen agreed?
Yes, sir.
Senator from the 15th has asked for unanimous consent that House Resolution 142 be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Operations and be committed to state institutions and property. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the bill is moved. The resolution is moved. The chair continues to recognize the senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that House Resolution 143 be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Operations and be committed to the Committee on State Institutions and Property.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Resolution 143 by Representatives Green of the 151st and others, a resolution authorizing the granting of non-exclusive easements for the construction, installation, operation, and maintenance of facilities, utilities, roads, and ingress and egress in, on, over, under, upon, across, or through property owned by the state of Georgia in Barrow, Bartow, Bibb, and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator, have both chairmen agreed on the move? They have. The senator from the 15th has asked for unanimous consent that House Resolution 143 be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Operations and be committed to state institutions and properties. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is moved. You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine.
There.
Have all senators voted? Have all gotcha. Is the hallway clear? Got a thumbs up. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. And the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. We are now going to move on to the rules calendar. The rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption to House Bill 111?
House Bill 1.
What purpose does the senator from the 36th rise?
I'd like to ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 22nd for business outside the Capitol.
22nd?
That's right.
Without objection, the senator from the 22nd is excused. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 111 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled an Act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to financial institutions so as to clarify and remove superfluous language, to update terminology, to remove outdated language, to amend Chapter 3 of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to installment loans so as to provide for deferments of the installment loans, to amend Chapter 6A of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Fair Lending Act and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Banking and Financial Institutions recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th, Chairman. That completes your order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to present House Bill 111. The distinguished senator from Macon.
Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Mr. President. Thank you for that nice narrative. Happy Monday morning to my colleagues. It's nice to see you. I hope you had a good weekend. I bring to you the House Bill 111. As many of you know, you may have interfaced with the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance. They do a really good job of regulating our banks and our related financial institutions, and also balance the regulatory nature of what they do with the consumer protections that we want to make sure is provided to folks. This year's annual housekeeping bill contains proposed legislative changes that identified internally or were suggested by the industry over the course of the previous year. Our major goal of these efforts is streamlining or simplifying the existing statutes and to make the department's regulations more efficient, or to ease the regulatory burden on financial institutions while at the same time ensuring that banks and credit unions are safe and sound. The bill contains revisions for banks, credit unions, installment lenders, and money service businesses, money transmitters and sellers of payment instruments, and mortgage lenders regarding broker laws. The legislation, I'm happy to tell you, is supported by the Georgia Bankers Association, the League of Southeastern Credit Unions, formerly known as Georgia Credit Union Affiliates, Mortgage Bankers Associations of Georgia, and the Georgia Financial Services Association. Equally important, I'm pleased to tell you, is that no one has objected to any of the provisions that are here or expressed any concern to me about this year's annual banking bill. It is very much, we often talk about, this is a cleanup bill, but this truly is. It's an annual effort by the good folks at the Banking and Finance Department. Some of the more significant changes that are sought to address really came from some shortcomings in the implementation of the laws that we have as seen in the last 24 months through the COVID-19 pandemic. The Installment Loan Act, for example, provides that a loan agreement cannot be longer than 36 months and 15 days. And because of some court interpretations, that was deemed to be strictly construed. But fortunately, and what's done here is that the department has worked with the various stakeholders and creates, in particular, two opportunities for having extension of time for that period. Number one, for a hardship deferment or a convenience deferment. So I'm happy to see that our department is thinking about what happens in the real world as their regulations are being implemented for consumers. The bill also creates a structure in the installment lender space where borrowers and lenders can agree to defer payments, as I just alluded to. So the House vote, this comes to you with a 160-0 House vote. It comes with a unanimous recommendation from our House Banking, and perhaps most importantly for this morning, our esteemed banking chair, the senator from the 28th. It has his full endorsement and a thumbs up in the chamber this morning. As I said, all associations support this, and the two main themes really are, number one, updating the revisions to the banking code because of what we experienced with the pandemic, and number two, in particular, changing this requirement with regard to the limitations on the term. I know we talk, folks and friends, a lot about divisiveness in this chamber, but I will confess to you that I had bipartisan requests from multiple members of this floor that I not go section by section of this bill. So with that, I can read the tea leaves, folks. So, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions about this good bill, but I'm also happy to yield the will if that's the will of this body.
The will of this body is for you to take your seat. There are no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks very much. I appreciate your support.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 111? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does the senator from the 56th rise?
Mr. President, I'd ask unanimous consent that House Bill 286 be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Oversight and be committed to the Committee on Public Safety.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 286 by Representative Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to county police so as to restrict the ability of county governing authorities to reduce funding for county police departments, to amend Chapter 60 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to the general provisions applicable to municipal corporations so as to restrict the ability of municipal or consolidated government governing authorities to reduce funding for municipal police departments and for other purposes. That completes your order, Mr. President.
Senator, have you spoken to both chairmen? Thumbs up. Senator from the 56 has asked for unanimous consent that House Bill 286 be withdrawn from the Committee on Government Oversight and be committed to public safety. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the bill is moved. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, 16 March 2021.
Mr. Secretary, please read the announcements.
The Committee on Rules will meet upon adjournment in room 450 of the Capitol. At 1 o'clock, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs will meet in the mezzanine. The Committee on Finance will meet in 450 of the Capitol at 1 o'clock as well. The State Institutions and Propriety Committee will meet at 1 o'clock in room 125 of the Capitol. The Senate Committee on Judiciary will meet at 2:15 in 307 of CLOB. The Committee on State and Local Government Operations will meet at 2:15 in room 310 of CLOB. And the Senate Committee on Ethics will meet at 3:30 p.m. in room 307 of CLOB. That completes your order.
I want to take a quick moment to remind everybody that tomorrow is going to be the joint session for Chief Justice Harold Melton to address us for the state of the judiciary tomorrow at 10:45. So we're going to have to conclude our business prior to that. Just like we did during the State of the State address, the Senate is going to stay in these chambers here and watch via video, obviously for space, social distancing. But along with myself, the President Pro Tem, the Majority Leader, and the Minority Leader will represent the Senate over in that joint session. Are there any additional announcements by a senator? The chair sees none. The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Tuesday, March 16, 2021 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.